Introduction to Meditation Session 1. This session, the first one, is being held on January 12th, Dalhousie University at 12 noon. The idea of meditation can be viewed in many different ways. And in this course, we will be expanding the definition to include the actual practice, the actual doing techniques. However, in general, the idea of meditation has to do with contemplation, with considering thought, reflection. So we'll be taking a look at thought and how meditation is a part of the thinking process. As part of the sessions, there will be uh, this presentation available online after the sessions. In addition, if you wish to practice the meditations, there's a recorded version of them that you can access at the Bounce Back of the website. If you want more information about classes, if you want to contact me, or if you want to just give feedback, you can go to the association Facebook page, and you could even join it if you want, or there's ability to flag it so you can be notified of changes. The 10 sessions have a topic. Each topic will look at a different aspect of meditation. Today's topic is ancient approaches. Now you might notice here that some of them have square brackets. And the last time I offered this course, we upgraded or beefed up a few of the topics, and I decided to keep the suggestions that were made and implemented last time in this course. And we still have the option as we move along if we want to change the tone of the future sessions. That may not be a problem. But at the present time, here are the topics of this session and the following 9. The classes will follow pretty much the same format, and in each one I'll be introducing some terms and concepts that you might be familiar with. There's a good chance that some of them will be used in slightly different ways than you're used to, and I'll try to make note of that. But here are the ones that we'll be focusing on today. We're going to go through 3 different phases here. We'll do some quick introductions since this is the first session. And then I want to talk about thinking and how I approach it so that the terms and the concepts and words I use will make sense to you. And then we'll actually do our first meditation. And we'll cover the topic for today and then wrap up the session with a detachment meditation. A little bit about me. I was born in Halifax, and I think my early family experiences helped shape my interest in meditation and in self-development. My parents were active in the community as spiritual healers and community activists. They were very, very successful at what they did. And in that environment, I first became aware of the power of the individual's perception of self. And then in my early adolescence, I participated in a children's theater experimental group, which I stayed with and studied with. And that took me into the whole area of the power of the mind and how through theater, and particularly experimental theater, creative theater, this can be explored. I continued this, and when I moved to Toronto and spent a period of study and performance with the Toronto Dance Theatre, attended Sheridan College for my studies and research, and also at the same time, Toronto being a mecca for Eastern cultures, was able to study yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, as well as getting certification in massage therapy. Then on my return here to Halifax, I continued my studies of Tai Chi and meditation, but also focused in on traditional Chinese medicine here at the Bedford College. And also over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been participating in studies at the St. Mary's University Center for the Study of Sport and Health, looking at ways that these approaches, call them applied approaches, match up with existing theories and research in personal growth and development, particularly focusing in on transformative experiences. Okay, let's just move right into it. I do guided meditations, and as I indicated earlier, you can get access to a recording of these actual meditations online. But today and in the following classes, we're going to have at least one guided meditation in the class. And the meditations that I do, the guided ones, focus in on what I call the modes of thinking. So the question is, what is thought? And one way of looking at thought is that thought is the processing of our sensory information. We have our five senses plus speech. And if you sit down and recall any kind of event, you're going to recall one of the five senses, or you're going to recall words. The primary six modes, because when you combine speech with the five senses, you end up with six modes, break down into something that we would call submodalities. So each mode is a modality. And the submodalities say a visual. One of them, submodalities, is color. Color of what you're looking at or seeing or visualizing. And there are many other submodalities of vision. Vision happens to be one of the primary modes that people use most often. The other is sound. And the third, probably most common, would be kinesthetic. I tend to be primarily a visual, kinesthetic type of person. I like to move when I talk, and when I give descriptions of things, I'll give a visual description. So the three meditations focus in on these three primary modes of thinking, and today we'll do a color meditation, which will be activating or stimulating our visual processing. Now, when we think of something, we'll have what can be called a frame. A frame is merely a picture, it could be a movie, um, but it's a painting, say, of a past experience that you're recalling. And in that painting, or video, or film, however you want to visualize it, so whatever you recall will be recalled in a frame, and in the frame will be the six modes, one or more of the six modes, and each of the mode will have one or more submodalities. So if you're recalling an experience with, say, your brother, you might have a visual picture, and in that visual picture you might have light, color, you might have textures that you see, as well as textures that you can feel or smells. If you're thinking of Christmas, you might remember Christmas by the smell of the turkey cooking in the oven, etc. So today, as I said, we're going to do the guided meditation, and we'll do the color meditation. Just a brief history of meditation. It goes back before the birth of Christ. Approximately 2,000 years ago, there are written records of people with actual techniques for meditating. Now, it may be older than that, but the records were not written. Also, the records that are written tend to be in organizations, religious organizations such as the Hindu religion or the Taoist or the Buddhist. There is evidence, though, that families had their own techniques, and in China it was quite often for various meditative practices to be held within families or communities. Then, through the Middle Ages, there are lots of records of other countries or other parts of the Middle East and Europe adopting various meditative practices. And most religions, if you look at them, have some form of contemplation, prayer, or meditation. But it wasn't until the 1920s that a formal introduction of Eastern approaches came to North America, and that was with yoga. Later on, in 1939 approximately, Tai Chi was introduced formally, and then later classical traditional TM meditation was introduced in the 50s. What's important about this is that when meditative practices came to North America, they were stripped of the religious content primarily and came over mainly as a technique. In this course, I'll be approaching meditation as a technique and an experience. I will not be including it as a form of religion or bringing in any dogma associated with it. I'll just be dealing with it as something that you can do to enhance your own personal learning. Now, once it was introduced to North America, one of the things that did happen was the universities began researching the skilled meditators. And one university that was a forerunner in this was Harvard University. And out of the various research projects and writings and exploration, mindfulness as a technique came out. Alan Langer published a series of books and made the word mindfulness popular. But just be aware that mindfulness comes out of all the research that was done at Harvard University on traditional meditation practices. When we look back at the history of meditation, we go back, say, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, when these people were thinking about what was going on. You could imagine, in a sense, these group of people sitting around, maybe after a long day's work, sitting around a fire, having a cup of tea, and just talking, just having discussions about reality. And one of the things I could imagine them saying to each other is, what is it we are experiencing? What is this? And I find myself, even today, asking the same question. So I've got three different concepts that emerge from the ancient approaches. And one concept that goes back to the origins of most religions is the concept that there is one energy. One energy. And there's a description of this one energy that I find very, very interesting and has a parallel to our Western scientific view of the universe and of reality. So here it is. In the ancients' view, they saw this one energy as being everything. Everything you could see, touch, and hold was in fact all made from this one energy. And of course, science has the same view today as well. But the ancients took it another step further. They said this one energy was not only everything, but it was everywhere. So anywhere you went in the universe, you would experience the same one energy. Not a different one, but the same one. So this one energy was everything, and it was everywhere. And then the ancients took it one step further. They said this one energy was every time. It's everything, everywhere, and every time. It's not a huge leap to understand that science has pretty much the same perception of the universe and of reality as being an extension continuum of one energy. But the ancients took it another step. They said that this one energy was aware of itself. It was a conscious energy. And science didn't really go along with this until something happened. There was an experiment that raised a perplexing situation in the scientific community, and it took quite a while to resolve this. And this experiment is called double slit experiment. It's an experiment with light. And what this experiment eventually proved was that the observer, the observer had an effect on the results of the experiment. So something was happening. There was an interaction between the energy, the light, and the observer. So this observation effect parallels the idea of the ancients who said that this one energy was aware. The ancients didn't stop there. They went one step further. And they said this one energy that is everything, every time, every place, and aware is also content. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It doesn't need to have anything. It doesn't need to be concerned because it is everything. And so that the natural state of the universe is one of balance and contentment. The next concept I think is important is the differentiation between reality, what is real, and what is true. So not everything that you think and everything that you see is true. I personally believe that everything you think and experience is real, but it just might not be true. When you watch a movie, you watch a film, you know that the actors are portraying real characters and it looks real, but you know that they're not. They're just doing a job, and it's just a movie. So even though things can look real, you can believe that they're real. They're not necessarily true. So the difference between what you believe and what is true is important. And you could say this, that if you believe something, if you honestly believe something, whether you're right or wrong, it will be true for you. So beliefs are powerful. So what you believe determines what's true for you. However, in the big scale, it may not actually be true in sort of a universal sense. So the ancients said, well, how do you know? How can you tell if something, if everything looks real, how do you know if it's really true? What's truth? An example on the scientific side of things, Western approach, the way you tell if an experiment is valid is that it's replicatable. So an experiment, if it's a truly valid result, you can repeat it. And the ancients said something quite similar. They said that if something is real and true, it's true everywhere. It's not just true in your basement, but it's true in your living room, it's true in China, it's true in San Francisco, it's true everywhere. Everywhere you go, the temperature, the boiling point of water will be the same temperature. So reality, true in reality, is true everywhere. They paralleled this with the idea of the energy as well. They said that it's true not only everywhere, but it's true every time. Now, there's another aspect of truth, and this has to do with development and growth, that at one level of understanding or experience, if something is true at that level, it will be true at all levels above that. The way you could equate this to scientific Western approach is to look at the periodic table. You start with the most simplest element and you build all the more complicated ones. You would not be able to build the more complicated elements if the way the electrons and atoms, the way they function changed because they were combined. They interact consistently no matter how complicated the element. And you can therefore build a stable periodic table. Well, the ancients knew this, and they said that at all levels of development, what was true at earlier stages is true at later stages, later stages. So truth and reality are important. But there was a gentleman some time ago, a few thousand years ago, at least 1,000 years ago, who identified the sources of pain and suffering. And if you look at pain and suffering around you and discomfort, this gentleman figured out the source of all pain and suffering. And of course, if you could eliminate this one source of pain and suffering, then you would not suffer. So suffering was optional. This was tied into something called the Four Noble Truths. It deals with this idea of what's real, what's true. But here are the three main points that this gentleman developed. He said that there are three ways that you will suffer. And the first one, that if you want something and you can't get it, you may suffer. If it's important to you that you want this particular thing, so you want this job, you want this relationship with someone, you want something, and you don't get it, you suffer. And the more you want it, the more intensely you want it, the more the suffering. I like the example of the child that is in the grocery store and wants the candy, the checkout lines, and the kids are there and they're put it there, the checkout line, so the kids will grab a chocolate bar and fight with the parents, and the parents are supposed to give up and buy it. But, you can see the child there, suffering, like being very upset because their mother or father will not buy the candy. I like that example. So, wanting something and not getting it, you might suffer. But it is optional. So the first one is wanting something and not getting it. The second thing that can cause suffering is getting something you don't want. A situation where you're just going about your day and something happens and you don't want it. This could be a flat tire, it could be a red light, it could be the phone call with the bad news, getting fired. It could be any of the things that will make you upset because you don't want that to happen. Here's the interesting thing. Even the expectation that something could happen will cause pain and suffering. So there are lots of people running around worried about these things they don't want that could happen, and they worry about them. So even if they don't happen, just worrying about them can cause pain and suffering. So we got two of the three. So we got not getting what you want, getting what you don't want. And the third one I find really interesting. The third one that this gentleman identified 1,000 years ago was getting what you want. Even if you get what you want, you can still suffer. The example here that I'll use again is little boy or girl who gets the ice cream or gets the chocolate bar that they were crying for, and they stop crying. They've got the chocolate bar, they've got the ice cream in their hand. And as they start to eat the ice cream, it's melting, and some of the ice cream is going down their hand. The ice cream's getting smaller and smaller, and finally they're down to that last little bit of the ice cream. There's just a little bit of cone. I used to do that too. There's a little bit of cone there with the ice cream on it, and you eat that last bit, but you don't feel satisfied. You feel disappointed. And the child may even cry because it's gone. What you wanted goes away. So the third one is getting what you want and then losing it. But here again, this is interesting because you don't even have to lose it. You can get what you want, but you can be afraid of losing it. And that can create all kinds of pain and suffering and unusual behaviors in people when they are protecting the things they have and because they don't want to lose them. You might know people who have lost something that they really loved. You might know that a particular person who has never dealt with the fact that they lost, say, a loved one. They had a great relationship, and now that person is gone. And they can't get over it. It causes tremendous pain and suffering. So these three things all have something in common. And what this gentleman, and you probably know who I'm talking about now, is Buddha. Buddha figured out that it all has to do with being attached to a desire. When you desire something, you're really attached to it. And you can't let go of that attachment. You're going to experience one or more of those three possible things. So the fourth noble truth is learning how to detach from desire. Now, what's a desire? Well, it goes back to what we were just talking about earlier. A desire is just a thought. A desire is just a thought of something. It's not the thing itself. So if you can learn to detach from something you want and can't get, you won't suffer anymore. You stay attached to wanting that thing that you will never have. I mean, I would like to be able to do the things I could do when I was a kid, but I'll never be able to do that. And if I'm really attached to wanting to be like I was when I was a teenager, I will experience some level of suffering and anxiety, distress. So the traditional meditation that we're going to do now comes from Buddha, or the approach that Buddha figured out. And this is traditional meditation has been practiced for thousands of years. And a version of this is used perhaps in most of the major meditative organizations or religions that use meditation. But it's just a technique. And it's a skill that you can learn. You can learn to detach from thoughts. I call them sticky thoughts. If you ever had a sticky thought that just won't go away. I did some work with youth, 16 to 18-year-olds, well, actually 13 to 18, and they were in group homes, and they had a lot of sticky thoughts. They had a lot of things that they worried about. They had a lot of things that had happened to them that weren't great. And so, when they practiced this meditation, they were practicing learning how to, even just for a short while, to let those thoughts that create the suffering go away. So how do you do it? It's quite simple. Remember now, on the website, there's an online recorded version of explaining and walking you through this, but we'll do it now in the class, and we will do one of these each session. There are a few simple things, no big problem here. One is that in you have the choice of doing this meditation with your eyes open or closed. It really does not matter. Some people prefer with the eyes open, some eyes closed. In the early stages, introductory stage, I suggest you do it with your eyes closed. It just helps you focus. And focus is what this is all about. When you are attached to something, whether that attached thing that you're dealing with is bringing you pleasure or pain, if you're attached to it, you are focusing on it. This is all about what you are thinking. So you could say, when I use the word focus, I'm saying thinking. Focus is equal to thinking. So you sit and you focus for a period of time, and I'm recommending for about 5 minutes. I'll give you the detailed descriptions of how to do this. But then afterwards, to just sit for an equal period of time. So the length of time you meditate, try to keep, you know, at least close to the same amount of time just sitting there quiet in contemplation. So let's talk briefly about posture. If you are doing this meditation for a brief period of time, say 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, posture is not really that important. So you don't have to worry about it too much. But if you are doing meditation longer than a few minutes, posture becomes important, and we'll talk about why the physical alignment is important. So there's a little picture here of a young lady sitting away from the back of the chair on her sitting bones with her shoulders over her hips and her ears lined up with her shoulders and her chin relaxed and down in this calm, relaxed position. The alignment is important. Location is not important, but in your early first couple of times you meditate, first time, I would suggest that you meditate in a location where you feel comfortable. But remember, you can do this anywhere, in the park, living room, in the cafeteria, doesn't matter. But what does matter is that initially you feel comfortable. So we talked about posture, we talked about location, we talked about duration. So let's do the meditation. The course, as I said, the classes will be every week, and the next one is January 19th, same time, same location. And our topic next week will be how the West analyzes or views meditation. So we'll take the Western analysis as in discourse. Thank you for attending and watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next class on the 19th.